Hey guys, Clint Coons here, and in this video we're going to talk about some of the top single-member limited liability company mistakes that investors make when they're setting up their LLC. All right, so let's just start right from the top about setting up a limited liability company and where you can go totally wrong with creating your LLC. Now, the first thing you should realize is, where are you going to set up this LLC? Well, that really depends on where you're going to be investing or where you're running your business. So the first mistake that I see people make when it comes to setting up an LLC is they set it up either in their home state or they set it up in Nevada or Wyoming, and they don't plan to do business in either of those states. And so then they run into problems down the road. So when you're considering where to file your first limited liability company, if it's going to be conducting business or owning real estate, it needs to be set up in the state where the asset is located. All right, so this brings me to number two, actually setting up the LLC. The second mistake that I see people make time and time again is they want to be their own registered agent. Now, what is a registered agent? Well, it is a required individual or business that will receive service of process if the state or, say, a plaintiff wants to sue your LLC, they need to get in contact with you. They serve it on your RA, registered agent. Now, you cannot be your own registered agent if you don't live in the state where the LLC is being set up. So for example, if I was buying property in Florida and I happen to live in Texas, I couldn't be a registered agent for my Florida limited liability company because I don't reside there. Now let's assume that I was setting it up in Texas and I live there. Should I be my own RA? Hell no, you don't want to be your own RA, because again, what you're telling people is that it's your company. I live here. If you want to know where I live, come to my house and meet me. So you should always make sure that you use a professional or a company as your registered agent. Not to mention, how uncomfortable is it if someone was serving you while you're having a dinner party? All your friends would now think that you're engaging in some type of illicit activity with that business. Or if you move and you forget to update your address with the Secretary of State and then your entity falls out of compliance. These are some of the problems that I've seen when it comes to running businesses and why you don't want to be your own registered agent. All right, so this brings me to my next point, which happens to be after your LLC is set up. Make sure that you draft an operating agreement. I see so many people say this, well, it's just a single member LLC. I'm the only member in that limited liability company. Why do I need an operating agreement to tell me what I need to do? I kind of know that. Well, yeah, some of you do have split personalities and you may not remember what you told yourself the day before, but in reality, you need an operating agreement so that it lays out for anybody else what your rights and responsibilities are vis-a-vis that company. More importantly, it is a company, and typically it is written down in an operating agreement about how assets are going to be contributed, how they're going to be distributed to yourself, and it adds a level of formality to it. When you want to get a loan, or you're going to be working with title companies if it has to do with real estate, or maybe just opening up a bank account, you are going to be asked for an operating agreement. So you must draft this operating agreement. Now, the fourth mistake that I see people make is they don't even sign it. They just put it together. They download it off the internet, which is a mistake in and of itself, which I'm not even mentioning. And then they don't even sign their operating agreement. They just have their name written on it as a member. If it was set up as a manager-managed LLC, make sure you're listed as a manager as well, but you need to sign this operating agreement. Now, the fifth mistake that I see happen time and time again is you don't open up a bank account for your LLC. Listen, your LLC is an active business and it's going to be out there conducting business. Maybe it's collecting rents. Maybe it's running a florist shop. Whatever it is, you have to have a bank account because you don't want to be running money for your business through your personal account. You probably heard people talk about veil piercing. That means that if your company is sued, they look through the company and hold you personally liable. Why would you go to all the trouble to create this limited liability company only to have it fall when you're involved in your first lawsuit? Not setting up a bank account could create that issue for you, so you want to make sure you set up that account as soon as you get your LLC set up. All right, the sixth mistake is that when you're dealing with third parties on behalf of your LLC, You must always let them know that they're working with the limited liability company and not you as an individual. I see so many people that will come up to me and tell me, oh, hey, I have a business set up, and they'll hand me a business card and I'll have their LLC name on there, and I'll have their name at the bottom of the card, but it won't designate, are they a member or manager, or are they a manager of this limited liability company? So I don't know, am I dealing with them or dealing with their company? You want to make sure that whenever you're dealing with third parties, that you're always holding yourself out in your representative capacity. That means if you have to sign an agreement, if you have a manager managed LLC, you always put your name down as manager. Or if it's a member managed LLC, you'll always sign as member manager. Now, the seventh mistake that I see come up time and time again has to do with obtaining a taxpayer identification number. You need to apply to the IRS and get an EIN number for your limited liability company. In fact, you need to get that before you set up your bank account. Now, when choosing or obtaining your EIN letter, you want to make sure you're making the right tax election for your limited liability company. An LLC can be set up as a C Corp, it can be set up as a S Corp, disregarded, or if you had another member, it could be set up as a partnership. Now, if you're setting up your limited liability company, make sure you know what type of tax election you need for that particular type of business. And then, actually, if we go back to the fifth step where I was talking about setting up an LLC operating agreement, make sure that your operating agreement matches the tax election that you've chosen for that particular business. All right, so the next to the last mistake you need to be concerned about is obtaining insurance. So just because you set up a limited liability company and you think, hey, I'm there, I've got this LLC set up, I'm protected if anything goes wrong, it doesn't relieve you of setting up insurance and naming that LLC as an insured party. You must buy insurance for your LLC based upon your business. So, for example, if you're on this channel right now, I assume you're investing in real estate. So you put your rental real estate into a limited liability company, but you don't change the policy over. So you really need to make sure that you're changing your policy to have your LLC as the named insured. One way in which creditors can pierce the veil of a limited liability company is when the entity itself is not adequately insured. Do not make this mistake with your limited liability company. Make sure you're obtaining insurance. Now, the last mistake that I see happen time and time again with investors is that they already have a living trust set up. Now, if you're not familiar with the living trust, I got plenty of other videos on my channel about the importance of this estate planning tool. But here's the thing. You've been told that you need to set up your living trust to own everything. So now here you are setting up an LLC and you think to yourself, well, my living trust should own my LLC, so I'm going to make my limited liability company the member, my living trust. Therefore, the trust is the owner. Now, that is a mistake. Not from the standpoint of just setting it up and it's going to create extra liability for you, but it has to do with operating your business. Now, remember what I talked about opening a bank account, how important that is for your LLC? Well, one thing I've learned about setting up limited liability company operating agreements is that you don't want to give third parties with whom you have to share your operating agreement too much information. What do I mean by that? Well, if you turned over your operating agreement to a bank because they asked for a copy of it to get a loan or to open up a bank account, and the member is listed as your living trust, what do you think the next question they're going to ask? That is, hey, we need to see a copy of your living trust. So it's going to delay the process. So when you're setting up a limited liability company, either you should be listed as the member, or if you're using one of the strategies that I teach about having a Wyoming holding company, list it as a member, but keep your trust off of your operating agreement. Because all you're going to have to do is turn that over at some point in time. It's just going to slow down whatever approval process you're looking to work through. Now, how do you get your LLC into your living trust? Well, that's through an assignment. So after your LLC is set up, you're listed as the member of that LLC, or your Wyoming LLC is set up there, then you just assign your membership interest. And that's just one piece of paper. It's not actually included in your operating agreement. That is, you're not going to draft it into your operating agreement, and you're sure as hell not going to send it over to someone who has to see a copy of your operating agreement. Oh, here's the assignment of my membership interest at a later date. All you'll want to do is just send that LLC if anyone ever asks for it. Guys, these are my top mistakes that I find in setting up single member LLCs, and a little bit has to do with any limited liability company that someone's setting up for their investing or for their business. Make sure you don't make these mistakes in setting up yours. I wish you the very best with your investing.